Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. So, a little bit of a follow-up to a video I did on my main channel a few days ago, and it was an exercise of futility that very nearly, well, finished me off, because Chris made a response video to Courtney slash Project SNT, and how he was demonstrating about cancelling killing cringe culture. The problem with the entire video is that Chris was saying things that were completely contradictory. Chris was coming across as a complete hypocrite, and every single excuse seemed to fall back on I have autism, something that we've heard several times before. But we've also heard Chris say that he's changed in as many times, and how the one phrase you're never going to hear out of Chris is, I accept full responsibility for my own actions. You will never hear that from Chris. I'm saying that as though all people were unaware of this. But whilst that does need a longer explanation at some point in the future, Chris apparently has now gone on the attack once again and explains how actually we didn't get it at all. So here it is. I have heard that some of you all may or may not be getting the message and meaning of my responding to Courtney's recent video. So what was your point then, Chris? Because to be honest, you always seem to have this habit of, well, not exactly proving anything. And what are you trying to prove, Chris? In short, as is where I should have simply not care about or ignore the online commentary from others, especially the trolls. But you did, Chris, and you still do it. So the lot of you should not be pestering us who are trying to avoid the lot of you. What about the people who actually criticize you for the things you do, Chris? Are they considered trolls as well? Because, Chris, this is starting to sound very, very old and very, very familiar. And yes, if you also don't know, Chris will interpret any level of criticism whatsoever, constructive or otherwise, as people being trolls. Chris cannot discern the difference between the two. Actually, I take that back. Chris can't or won't discern the difference. Whilst there are plenty of people out there, people like you and me, that can and do. And you may, again, if you've never heard me mention that before, I just like to think there are only really two types of people in this world. Those who can't or won't, and those who can and do. And Chris both can't or won't. Meanwhile, like Courtney, I have been trying to emotionally and mentally distance myself from the toxic lot of you. Bothering any of us who have set and are setting the boundaries is wrong. Well, you mean what about the boundaries you cross, Chris? Does it equate for that as well? In fact, I have never ever was at ease being referred to as a lolcow, nor being abused for the amusement. Few problems with this, Chris. First of all, not being abused for the amusement. Well, why do you still keep doing things that are going to make you abuse, Chris? Why do you still keep banging on about the dimensional merge when you know there's an overwhelming majority of people who tell you you are talking out of your ass? Or why do you keep doing things that keep drawing negative attention to you then? Or for that matter, you hate being referred to as a lolcow. Unfortunately for you, Chris, stop acting like one then. The only way, Chris, to stop this happening for good is if you just came off the internet and never went back on it. Like I said previously, no good has ever come out of Chris's life as a result of Chris being on the internet. And in case you're thinking Chris is, well, too far gone, and why exactly is Chris going to start now? Well, can I just say, coming off the internet for good is always an option. But we continue. Do you all want to know why I sometimes read the comments? That's because, despite the fact you say you don't care, Chris, in the previous video, you do. So, there you are, Chris. So you're still lying, and that's why, Chris. People lie, I suppose. Yes, fair enough. I'll give Chris that one. However, it's a bit hypocritical of you, Chris, saying that you don't care when you just admitted to looking in the comments, which is what you just said. So yes, it does matter to you. So what if it matters to you that much, Chris? Then why are you still continuing to make yourself look like an idiot? And in case you think you're not an idiot, Chris, well, prove it to us in facts, not in theories or ideas. How about prove it in something factual? Prove it in something that actually discerns a certain level of, well, we should not be criticizing you too harshly. Do something like that, Chris, and you know what? Maybe we'll respond in kind. But to be honest, as I said in the previous video again, and I think it was probably the harshest thing I said, is that, Chris, you're not a good person. Why? How do I know that? Because despite the fact that you say you're on this redemption, who still believes Chris is even going through this redemption arc? Because no, it was dead the moment Chris brought it up. But what exactly have you done that is kind, Chris, in the last couple of days? How about you do something like that instead? Do you think that might be a bit better? How about, saying and doing are two very, very separate things. Anyway, as well as often read that Reddit pages or even less often Kiwi Farms, it is because of my concern over me being spotted a la Bigfoot. Was it not clear when Chris Chan Prime decked the trio of Focus Robos? I don't quite know what that means. Well, some Transformers reference anyway. However, there is just this to be said about if Chris was paranoid about being seen in public. Well, Chris, again, the only way to do this and to actually... The only way to stop this, Chris, is you come off the internet for good. Then all of a sudden, people will stop paying attention to you if there's nothing going on. And when there's nothing going on, people will just move on. Chris... When you phrase it like that, it's actually very, very straightforward how to solve this. But as I said, but again, Chris doesn't really take that approach. Not because I don't think Chris can, but I think it's just because Chris won't do it for whatever reason. That was also a statement towards all of you. And the fact that some of you want to keep paparizing me is concerning and really shows a weaker mindset within you. And you think you're better, Chris. Do you really believe that? What makes you better than us, Chris? And like I said before, move on, and guess what? The rest of us will as well. Even worse, anyone wanting to attempt to manipulate, deceive, abuse, or even troll me toxically. Everyone on Kiwi Farms and that Reddit page, as well as the Quickie, should consider rethinking your own individual and respective priorities, life purposes, and choices. It's disappointing. Disappointing for who, Chris? I pray all of you will sense the shifts and change yourselves for the holy and light-powered. So, yeah, that's just about... by the way, Chris still thinks he's Jesus Christ. That's why he believes all of a sudden, he can just sort of... And all of a sudden, all will change and that's it. Now, you may argue, and I will... a slight different shift is that I don't disagree with the idea of Chris actually, trying to, pray for other people. I think that's actually quite... It's quite a noble gesture. However, it's sort of... there's problems with it. First of all, Chris, how often would you see Chris actually praying, in the real world? Because if Chris is only saying he prays online, it's just showing to be seen to be praying, as opposed to, actually doing it. The second thing is that Chris wants people to stop paying attention to him and glamorizing his life. Well, guess what, Chris? Come off the internet forever, and therefore everyone will move on. So, I'm not really too sure what else I'm supposed to say apart from that. Well, I'll just reiterate one more time. And, Chris, I know you won't be listening to this because, again, you think any level of criticism or advice you perceive to be trollish whatsoever. So I'll say it on behalf of the people who will listen. So here it is. The only way this will ever stop, Chris, is if you just come off the internet forever and never turn back. The whole world will move on, and that will be that. That's the only way this is going to happen. And sadly, Chris, you know deep down inside yourself this is absolutely this is the truth. This is the only way it can end. And with all that being said, I'll see all of you guys again next time. Thank you.